You're listening to the CyberWire Network, powered by N2K.
Cyber threats are more sophisticated than ever. Passwords, they're outdated and can be cracked in a minute. Cyber criminals are intercepting SMS codes and bypassing authentication apps. While businesses invest in network security, they often overlook the front door, the login. Yubico believes the future is passwordless. YubiKeys offer unparalleled protection against phishing for individuals, SMBs, and enterprises. They deliver a fast, frictionless experience that users love. Yubico is offering N2K followers a limited buy one, get one offer. Visit yubico.com/N2K to unlock this deal. That's YUBICO. Say no to modern cyber threats. Upgrade your security today. Over 150 government database servers are dangerously exposed to the internet. Threat actors are exploiting a vulnerability in Checkpoint's ZoneAlarm antivirus software. Albabat ransomware goes cross-platform. ESET reports on the Chinese Operation FishMedley campaign. VanHelsing ransomware targets Windows systems in the US and France. CISA issues 5 ICS advisories warning of high-severity vulnerabilities across critical infrastructure systems. A former NFL coach is indicted for allegedly hacking into the accounts of thousands of college athletes. Brendan Karpf joins us with a look at cyberspace in space, and a fraud detection firm gets shut down for fraud. It's Friday, March 21st, 2025. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your CyberWire Intel Briefing. Thanks for joining us, and happy Friday. It is great to have you with us. A recent investigation has revealed a major cybersecurity threat to U.S. government data. Over 150 government database servers, used by agencies like the Departments of Agriculture, Education, and Energy, are exposed to the Internet, violating basic security protocols. These databases, hosted on Microsoft's Azure GovCloud, have open ports vulnerable to brute force attacks and known exploits. The report highlights over 655 unauthorized access attempts and more than 200 real-time data replications, suggesting serious flaws in authentication and data protection. Analysts believe the exposure stems from a rushed federal data centralization effort. Experts are calling for urgent action, including congressional hearings and audits, to address what has the potential to become a catastrophic breach. The White House is shifting cybersecurity responsibilities from federal agencies to states and local governments. A new executive order from President Trump introduces a national resilience strategy, aiming to give local entities more control over defending infrastructure and elections from cyber threats. This move follows cuts to federal cybersecurity teams and programs, leaving states without vital support like vulnerability alerts and free risk assessments. Experts warn this decentralization could lead to fragmented defenses, especially as many states lack the resources and intelligence centers to fill the gap. Cybersecurity professionals say the burden will hit underfunded sectors like schools and small municipalities hardest. Critics argue the shift, combined with federal workforce reductions, undermines national security and leaves states to manage growing cyber risks largely on their own. A new report reveals that threat actors are exploiting a vulnerability in Checkpoint's ZoneAlarm antivirus software to bypass Windows security. Security researcher Nima Bagheri detailed a bring-your-own vulnerable driver attack using an old, signed driver with kernel-level privileges. This allows attackers to evade antivirus detection, bypass Windows memory integrity protections, and gain full system access. Once in, they steal credentials and establish remote access. Users are urged to update to the latest non-vulnerable version. Albabat ransomware has evolved into a cross-platform threat, now targeting Windows, Linux, and Mac OS systems. Trend Micro researchers found multiple versions using GitHub for configuration management, allowing remote updates without redeploying malware. The ransomware retrieves settings via the GitHub REST API and avoids encrypting key system files while targeting user data. It terminates processes to ensure encryption success and collects detailed system info. Payment details in its config suggest preparation for expanded attacks using Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and BNB. ESET reports that iSoon, a Chinese cybersecurity contractor linked to Beijing's Ministry of Public Security, ran a 2022 cyber espionage campaign called Operation FishMedley. Its operational unit, Fishmonger, targeted 7 organizations across Taiwan, Hungary, Turkey, Thailand, the U.S., and France. Using tools like ShadowPad, Spider, and the newly identified R-Pipe Commander, attackers gained deep network access, extracted credentials, and exfiltrated data. The campaign followed a document leak and U.S. indictments of iSoon staff for hacking U.S. agencies, activists, and dissidents. A new ransomware called VanHelsing is targeting Windows systems in the U.S. and France, focusing on government, manufacturing, and pharmaceutical sectors. First spotted in March 2025, it uses advanced encryption and evasion tactics, appending .VanHelsing to files and demanding ransom via a Tor-based chat site. VanHelsing employs double extortion by encrypting and exfiltrating sensitive data. It uses rootkits, registry changes, and bootkits for persistence, making detection difficult. Security experts urge strong backups, system patching, MFA, and zero-trust strategies for defense. CISA issued 5 ICS advisories warning of high-severity vulnerabilities across critical infrastructure systems. These include flaws in Schneider Electric's EcoStruxure software and Enerlin X IFE components, with multiple input validation issues. Siemens SimCenter FEMAP also contains a memory buffer flow vulnerability, while SMA's Sunny Portal has a file upload flaw. Finally, Santasoft's DICOM Viewer Pro suffers from an out-of-bounds write issue. CISA urges immediate updates to reduce exploitation risks, especially as these systems often support vital infrastructure. Former NFL and University of Michigan assistant coach Matt Weiss has been indicted on 14 counts of unauthorized computer access and 10 counts of identity theft for hacking into the accounts of thousands of college athletes. From 2015 through 2023, Weiss allegedly breached databases managed by Karpf Development Services, targeting over 150,000 athletes across more than 100 schools. The indictment says he focused on female athletes, seeking private photos and videos by accessing their social media, cloud, and email accounts. Weiss allegedly cracked encryption using online research and kept detailed notes on stolen content. Fired by Michigan in 2023 after refusing to cooperate with an internal investigation, Weiss had previously worked for the Baltimore Ravens. Federal prosecutors say they will aggressively pursue the case to defend victims' privacy. Coming up after the break, my conversation with Brandon Karpf with a look at cyberspace, in space, and a fraud detection firm gets shut down for fraud. Stick around. We've all been there. You realize your business needs to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Well, it's easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post noticed. Indeed's sponsored jobs helps you stand out and hire fast. Your post jumps to the top of search results so the right candidates see it first. And it works. Sponsored jobs on Indeed get 45% more applications than non-sponsored ones. One of the things I love about Indeed is how fast it makes hiring. And yes, we do actually use Indeed for hiring here at N2K CyberWire. Many of my colleagues here came to us through Indeed. Plus, with sponsored jobs, there are no subscriptions, no long-term contracts. You only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Oh, in the minute or so that I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners to this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/cyberwire. Just go to Indeed.com/cyberwire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/cyberwire. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Looking for a career where innovation meets impact? Vanguard's technology team is shaping the future of financial services by solving complex challenges with cutting-edge solutions. Whether you're passionate about AI, cybersecurity, or cloud computing, Vanguard offers a dynamic and collaborative environment where your ideas drive change. With career growth opportunities and a focus on work-life balance, you'll have the flexibility to thrive both professionally and personally. Explore open cybersecurity and technology roles today at vanguardjobs.com. My former N2K colleague and current friend of the show, Brandon Karpf, recently sat down with Maria Vermasis over on the T-Minus podcast to talk about cyberspace in space.
DoD released a memo and policies around modern software acquisition reform, where they identified this pathway called the software acquisition pathways, which is really meant to implement agile processes in how the DoD acquires, implements, fields software. Traditionally, software has been seen just like every other DoD program, regardless of if it's an aircraft or a ship or a ground system for a satellite communications network, has all been approached exactly the same. Obviously, that doesn't work well for software. Software, you have to test, you have to iterate, you have to move quickly. And so this memo that just came out last week is directing the acquisitions community to come up with an implementation plan for this much more rapid, iterative, agile approach to software acquisitions.
So when we say rapid,
yes,
how rapid are we talking?
Right. Well, so similarly, and actually the same day that this memo came out, Space Systems Command released a case study around satellite communications. And I think this was intentionally timed. It was literally the same day. And this case study is fantastic. It's about the Evolved Strategic Satellite Communications Program, and specifically their implementation of a new agile software acquisitions technique for this program, and specifically for the ground segment, the ground segment software for this program. Now, before this program, they admitted, and I cannot believe they publicly admitted this, they admitted that it historically takes them 12 years to field new software.
To field, not even to get it up and running,
right?
Just to approve, just to sign the contract.
Right, 12 years, which is insane. Under this program that they implemented, their new time horizon is 6 years. Doesn't sound a lot better, but I mean, they literally cut it in half. I think that's proof of concept as they move forward. It's what they're calling the Griffin program, GRIFFON. It seems like they'll get faster and faster. And basically, the précis here is they implemented the agile process. They started with customer discovery. They brought in a bunch of potential vendors to do requirements development. Those vendors went away, took those requirements, developed a minimum viable product. They presented that minimum viable product in a bake-off. The Air Force, their Space Systems Command, selected the winner from that bake-off, and that allowed the winner to implement their own software development process and iterate on that and get it to the point where they could start deploying and testing this new ground resilient system for the satellite communications network.
Sounds great. I'm asking a question I know the answer to, admittedly, but the cyber angle to this, let's walk that in, because there's a big one here.
Right. And so, as we're kind of moving into this brave new world of software-defined warfare, and my claim has always been the government, especially DoD, is the primary buyer for pretty much the entire space economy. Has been mostly on telecoms, certainly Earth observation as well. But to me, those are the two legitimate, viable markets for this industry. They are all vulnerable to cyber attack, and all those systems are cyber-enabled, software-enabled. So we're moving to a point of software-defined warfare. Software-defined warfare being that's where the threats are, that's where the opportunities are. We've certainly, in this industry, heard about the VSAT attack in early Ukraine. What most people haven't talked about is since then, there's been 124 more validated cyber attacks against space systems in Eastern Europe since VSAT. So obviously a huge threat vector and a huge target. What we haven't talked about so much is the opportunities of how the space segment can actually, especially software-defined space segment, could improve security, and especially when we're talking about telecommunications. So what I kind of want to pitch to this community and talk about is how this more rapid software development lifecycle, software acquisitions reform could help the space industry implement highly effective secure telecommunications infrastructure, leveraging the space segment.
Yeah, I was going to say yes. Let's get into that. So, I mean, admittedly, if you're not in the umbrella that may be directly affected by this, you might be going, well, how does this apply? But I think there are a lot of lessons here. So, okay, so that is the pitch that it's the opportunity. What does that look like on the ground? Right.
So, on the ground, step number one, what the DoD is doing is saying that they're going to do is they're going to accept more risk up front by rapidly implementing new software, by trying to implement this agile process with software acquisitions. They're basically saying we are going to accept early risk, understanding that allows software to be iterated upon, to be improved, and to be developed in a way that ultimately will decrease risk and cost in the long run. And so there are initial risks implemented there by accepting minimum viable software products. So that's kind of an interesting framing of them saying we're going to accept, historically they've said we're going to accept zero risk, which is why it takes 12 years to test and field anything. But what that ends up doing is it ends up locking them into these old systems. So now how does this industry implement this? I'm going to specifically talk about telecom because that's where I think the biggest opportunities are for improving the cyber posture and cyber defense of the West.
Certainly it's the largest perimeter too, right? If you want to think of it that way.
Exactly. Largest perimeter. Yeah. It's also globally targetable. So let's think about the space segment of the telecom infrastructure as providing backbone services. Now we have, LEO constellations, we have GEO constellations that can provide backbone connectivity for packetized networks, for data networks, for internet, et cetera. Those systems are globally targeted. Right, you can reach those from anywhere in the globe. So any adversary, whether it's Volt Typhoon, who proved that they're interested in the telecom infrastructure in the U.S. and Canada and has found their way into those systems, they're going to be targeting those systems. However, when you think about the space architecture, it actually can be a little harder to target. When you think about the kill chain, the first step of the kill chain is reconnaissance. First step of reconnaissance is figuring out where your target's infrastructure is, where their target points are, where their selectors like IP addresses, servers, etc., are located, and maneuvering through a network to find them and finding your way onto hot points. If we are leveraging intelligently, I'm not saying that you can necessarily do this off the bat, but think about how we can implement this rapid software implementation for the network layer, for the network and transport layer of the internet, and use the space segment to obfuscate our points of presence. So what does it mean by that? Think about each satellite as a point of presence. An adversary, I don't, even as a user, know which satellite my data is directly going to because they're moving. They're rapidly moving. It's a moving target defense. So if we can obfuscate your point of presence to get into networks as a user of telecoms infrastructure and leverage the space segment to create moving target defense, essentially maneuver warfare in the telecommunications network layer, that immediately makes it more difficult for the adversaries to target because they can't do reconnaissance as well.
So it's like so I'm thinking in the classic, on the defender side, you wanted to know what all your assets are so you can defend them because there's always assets that get forgotten or lost. In this case, we're saying security through obscurity. We want the moving target. That's a fascinating opportunity that really only space provides.
Exactly. Yeah, pretty much space or high altitude balloons or drones potentially for creating these relays for communications. But if you think about how you can leverage, and my call is to the DoD and any users of globalized telecom infrastructure, think about how you can use the space segment to obfuscate your communications, relay your points of presence in a rapid fashion to essentially make them ephemeral. So when Volt Typhoon's going after your telecom infrastructure, they have a hard time finding where you even are and where your network even is.
That's Brandon Karpf speaking with Maria Vermazis from the T-Minus podcast. Be sure to check out T-Minus wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Tired of investigation tools that only do one thing at a time? Spending more time juggling contracts with data vendors than actually investigating? Maltego changes that for good. Get one investigation platform, one bill to pay, and all the data you need in one place. It comes with curated data and a full suite of tools to handle any digital investigation. Connect the dots so fast, cybercriminals won't even have time to Google what Maltego is. See the platform in action at maltego.com. And finally, in a plot twist worthy of a Silicon Valley satire, former CEO of an ad tech company has been sentenced to a year and a day in prison for faking, pretty much everything. Paul Roberts, whose ad tech company claimed to detect fraudulent ads with its cloudy software KAI, decided to fraud his way to the top. In a bold bit of corporate make-believe, he orchestrated a $1.3 million phony service swap with another company, complete with fake reports generated from non-existent data. Both firms recorded the made-up transaction as real revenue, like a business version of kids trading Monopoly money and calling it profit. It worked, for a while. The company even went public, raising $33 million, but the SEC noticed the imaginary math, and Roberts pled guilty. By late 2024, the much-hyped KAI power merger vanished. Kubient, the company delisted itself and quietly folded. You have to admire the commitment. It takes real effort to fake that much effort. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. Be sure to check out this weekend's Research Saturday and my conversation with Tom Hagel from Sentinel Labs. The research we're discussing is titled Ghostwriter: New Campaign Targets Ukrainian Government and Belarusian Opposition. That's Research Saturday. Check it out. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to cyberwire@n2k.com. N2K's senior producer is Alice Carruth. Our CyberWire producer is Liz Stokes. We're mixed by Trey Hester, with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Peter Kilpie is our publisher, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here next week. Hey everybody, Dave here. Have you ever wondered where your personal information is lurking online? Like many of you, I was concerned about my data being sold by data brokers. So I decided to try Delete Me. I have to say, Delete Me is a game changer. Within days of signing up, they started removing my personal information from hundreds of data brokers. I finally have peace of mind knowing my data privacy is protected. Delete Me's team does all the work for you with detailed reports, so you know exactly what's been done. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners. Today, get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/N2K and use promo code N2K at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/N2K and enter code N2K at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/N2K, code N2K.